Well, here we are. We are live, and it is Becky Chernek, Ev and I on the edge. Yeah, I'm coming back. Ev and I on the edge. And boy, let me tell you, we have a really great evening. I have a really great evening in store for you. In fact, I'm bringing Mr. Mark Goren, who is a president, CEO of 1020 Marketing. And we have some really interesting information to share as far as this marketing in your own backyard stuff. And it kind of reminds me of that story about the diamonds in your own backyard. And some of us, wanting to, have that think big, sometimes it's just as important to think small to get big. So I want to go ahead with that. Let's bring Mark on. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Becky. Thank you for having me.
You're more
Becky, are you there?
So we kind of blinked out. Do you see me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Boy, that was scary.
Yes, it was.
Not exactly sure what happened with that one. But Mark, again, thank you so much for being here. And if you will, for everyone, tell us about your background, your history, what you do, and for fun, and what you do for work.
For sure. So I'm a marketing person, always have been. I took marketing classes from university, graduated with a marketing degree, went ahead and worked at agencies for a number of years, and then transitioned into basically coaching clients on marketing strategy, and more recently, working with local businesses to help them get their web foundation in order. And I take a lot of pleasure in helping smaller family-run businesses and dealer groups and other kinds of local focused businesses generate leads from their online presence, starting with directories mostly, actually.
Okay, well, wonderful. So here's the thing. So a lot of people might be thinking, okay, Beck, here's the deal. You've got Mark coming on, and he's from Quebec, Canada. How does that have anything to do with what we do here in the United States? And thus, welcome to Ev and I on the edge, because I like to do stuff that's edgy, that gets us thinking outside our own box, right? And why it's so important. Even as we had that conversation, I started thinking as a business owner, and I'm sure we have other business owners out there, I would hope so, including dealers, obviously, but who entrepreneurs that like myself, who are we want to figure out, how do we market the best way? How do we and be smart with our marketing dollars too while we're at it, right? And so we had a great conversation, and you said to me, are you marketing in your own backyard? And I'm like, no, I don't do that. I travel throughout the United States. I'm national. In fact, I work in Canada, Calgary, Ontario, you name it, Vancouver, Canada. And I'm like, I'm renowned. So you're like, no, you might be missing the boat. So guys, here, by the way, do me a favor, if you wouldn't mind, please share this out with all your associates, because you got to hear this, because I think, like me, it hit home. I'm like, maybe I am missing an opportunity here. So I wanted Mark to come on to talk about the opportunity that we likely are missing out on, that maybe we weren't thinking about. So if you would, Mark, kind of talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially what I've learned helping local business owners is that they don't have a proper foundation built to attract people online from the most simplest and easy to use tools. And by that, I mean directories. And if you think about Google and Google My Business and the potential of that, it is a real untapped resource for a lot of local businesses. And the example I like to use, Becky, is if I'm, as a consumer, standing between two Ford dealerships, equidistant from each one, and I search Ford dealer near me, the one that Google will present to me is the one that is most well optimized, starting with it being claimed. So the business owner actually has ownership of their location on Google. So it's properly presented on Google Maps, and also in the box when we're searching either on mobile or on desktop. There are reviews there. And if your reviews start with a 3 and your average rating is lower than 4, you are absolutely losing business. If the business owner is not engaged with reviewers, thanking people for positive reviews and sharing those positive experiences, or mitigating the problems that arise when somebody gives you a poor review and showing that you're actually in it and caring about your business, those are things that people look at. And then there are other tricks that you can use within Google to post content. And a lot of that content gets swallowed up by Google, understood and related to your listing, so that when people search and use keywords, your listing appears. And the listing that is most well optimized using all these tips and tricks is the one that Google will present. And Google has a lot of power to drive business to your dealership. So, your website counts for something, but people start with search. And the easiest way to get listed and to attract business from search is not to, pump a ton of money into SEO on your own website, but to actually put content directly into Google's mouth. That's what I'm saying.
Wow. So I'll tell you right now, it took me a while to go ahead. Well, not that long, but enough to go, wait a second. What are you talking about? Like, provide them with information, and it's that easy that will help you to get more recognized than your competitor, right? Did I hear that right?
Well, it's easy if you are first, right?
Yeah.
The same thing goes for anything that you do online. You need to be in it, and you need to put yourself in a winnable position so that you can own your space. And you want to own your local space, particularly online, because searches for near me and in your neighborhood and people looking for services that can be fulfilled in their local areas are the fastest growing searches that are taking place right now. And Google, here in Canada at least, owns, the last time I looked, it was about 70% of the search market share. So if you're not claimed and optimizing on Google, there are a bunch of different directories that have their level of influence, but nothing has more influence than the content you're putting into Google.
Well, you know what? When we had that conversation, I started thinking through this, and I'm like, okay, wait a second, because I often ignored that. I can tell you how many calls I must have gotten. I know I probably sound like, oh my gosh, she doesn't get this thing. Well, maybe I'm not the only one, right? Maybe not, and maybe this is some music to our ears, because we're missing out on some opportunity here where it's not costing a freaking fortune, right? So why wouldn't we take advantage of that? Why are we letting that just sit idle and not doing anything about it? I'm like thinking, after our conversation, I'm like, well, wait a second here. So here's a thought. There's a lot of stuff post-COVID going on. Before I quite get into this question, though, I do want to go ahead. We have some comments coming in, so I want to make sure we say hello to everyone that's commenting. And I just completely, I know, I am so sorry. I hope you got that sound back, because let me tell you, I'll feel bad if you didn't. Car Guy Coffee Post, there you are. Thanks for being here, guys. I certainly appreciate it. And here is Fredrick. Becky is everywhere. You're right, I am. I get into some of the places I never thought or ever dreamed possible, right? Who would ever thought that I'd be traveling in Canada, in Calgary, in Ontario, providing a 5-day, if you will, workshop in Ontario for SimTech Dealer Services. Those were some fun days, fun times, always enjoy it. And my glasses just fell to the ground. Hi, good to see you, Kay. Awesome, glad you're here. And then I love that you're talking to Canadian car people. Great to get a different perspective. I know, it's awesome. These guys are fantastic, fabulous. Here's the thing that I will say about the Canadian dealers. When they get to training, they're very, very serious-minded about it. I mean, they are in class, and they show up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me?
It would be impolite not to.
It would be impolite not to. They take their training seriously. That's what I love so much about it. I mean, sometimes here it's like dragging these guys in. It's like finally they show up at 9:00. No, I'm really serious about that. This is really awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. Absolutely love that you're here. And Google is a great tool. Google reviews are so important. And then we have my buddy Laura. Good information. So good to see you. My goodness, I could tell you a little bit about Miss Laura. Talk about out of the box thinking. Miss Laura is a hypnotherapist. And boy, let me tell you something. Years back, and I know I'm going into this rabbit hole, but I got to tell this story real quick. Well, Laura, years back, I was a smoker. And I love smoking cigarettes. She'll tell you, I mean, I was an avid cigarette smoker. I know how horrible is that, awful. Ugh. And so she helped me to quit smoking, believe it or not. And everybody thought, there's no way hypnotherapy can help you to quit smoking. Well, I got to tell you, I walked out of her office and 3 visits later, I wasn't smoking ever again and still not smoking. And then she helps with other things as well, weight loss and stuff like that. So you always have to think outside the box, right? Never say never. So this is what I think is so cool about you, Mark, that you're coming in here to the F&I on the Edge, and we are talking about how to, get outside your thinking on this. And, Fredrick mentioned Google reviews are so very important. And how we can do a better job in managing all that. And obviously the better that we do, the more business that we pick up. So we'll continue here. Hello, good to hear from you. Bangladesh, there you go. And how much market share does Google have in Canada? That's from Richie Bello. Do you happen to know?
Well, like I said earlier, the last time I looked at those numbers, it was in and around 70% of all search. It's a lot higher in the US, by the way.
Is it? What do you think it is?
I think it's over 80% in the US.
Okay. So, all right. I know this is all about F&I on the Edge here, guys. So I want to talk a little bit about this F&I stuff. How do you see, and how are your dealers handling the post-COVID? Are they thinking about putting more of their F&I online? How are they marketing to their customers when it comes to this, putting their F&I online post-COVID-19?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, your website is your biggest tool. You've got to have your build and price tools. You have to have all those things that you guys know a lot better than I do. But what I can tell you is that you can use Google to actually place product as well in your listing. And I know, you want to think about, how to let people know what you're doing. The best tool for that, again, I'm going to sound like I'm beating a dead horse here, but your Google My Business profile is very, very powerful. And right now, and what a lot of people don't realize is that you can post content to your Google My Business profile in the same way that you're posting to Facebook, to Instagram, and to other channels, maybe even LinkedIn. You can repurpose that same content and put it onto Google. And when it comes to F&I related things, that could be as simple as putting up a photo of a car, new arrivals, and actually put pricing there and put a link back to your website so people can get deeper in it with the customization of the car that they're really looking to buy, the trim, the package, the this, the that, whatever it might be. The beautiful thing about Google is that the more views you get of your listing, you're also going to get more phone calls into your dealership, more more people driving to you, and more people visiting your website. And that's all measurable, by the way. So the more that you put into Google, the more you see the views of your listing go up, the more interactions you get from it. So that's what I was saying earlier, is that it's a really underutilized lead generator. And the more that you capture those leads and intercept them on the search page, the more chances you'll have of converting them when they go to your website, or when they walk in, or when they pick up the phone to call you. And all of those buttons you see when you pick up a listing and you look on your phone, you'll see those buttons right there. And every time those buttons are clicked, they're being counted. The clicks are being counted. So we're able to actually show you the difference that optimizing your listing is making, because you'll see the views go up and you'll feel it in your dealership because you're going to get more traffic, whether it's online, via the phone, or via walk-ins.
So Richie Bello has another question. Do you optimize Google My Business page?
My whole business is based on optimizing Google My Business pages and placing companies on other directories as well. A lot of what Google is looking for from the most basic form of optimization, number one, they want to make sure that the business owner owns the listing. If Google sees that there's a location, your dealership exists, but you haven't claimed it, they might map it, but they might not have the perfect information. They want to get that from you. So that's number one. You go to Google My Business, you claim it. Once it's claimed, what we do is we put you on other directories and other mapping technologies as well, because what Google wants to see is that the information you've provided to them is consistent across the web. So they want to see that straight down to the pound sign, the comma, the dash in your phone number, the formatting of your address and your business information is the same from your website to your listing to other directories as well. And the more consistency you create across the web, the more Google will come to trust your listing. And that's step one to getting them to present your listing even more frequently. And the way that we work, and I don't need this to become a commercial for our services, but the way we work is we actually collect your business information one time, and we syndicate that we across these different directories. So all of the information, like I said, down to the formatting is the same. Okay. Then what you really want to do is don't sit back and wait for reviews to roll in. You want to connect with your customers while you're making the sale, while you're servicing them, and while you're sitting with them in the office signing the deal. And the people that you have, a good sense, you've had a positive rapport with, flat out ask them to give you a review. And there are tools that you can use to actually invite them and direct them straight to your listing so that they end up converting to a positive review. So there's a lot of different tips and tricks. And I see Richie's asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, he sure is. We've got, do you, I'm assuming he says, do you use software?
Yeah, we are using software
yeah.
to do all of this work, of course. Yeah.
And you found that is helpful in what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, the software is the key component of the business that we're operating. We have different software platforms that we work with to achieve different goals. We have one that helps us syndicate and monitor the listings across the number of directories that we will claim on your behalf. And we also we work with review monitoring and marketing software that allows you to do many different things. Track your reviews, respond to reviews, solicit positive reviews from your best clients, embed reviews onto your website if you want, and have other pages available to you that are searchable and indexable with positive content about your dealership.
So I want to go back a little bit to Mark. No, I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. But
no, go ahead.
You were talking earlier about how, I don't know if I picked this up correctly, but how can a dealer use those keywords for products, let's just say?
Sure.
And how is that managed? I mean, how does that whole thing work for
on the back,
products?
It's simple. In the same way that you would go to your Facebook page or your Instagram, all of that content is available to be put live through the back end of Google My Business. So very simply, you take your content, you put it into Google My Business, and Google My Business allows you to put different kinds of posts, whether you're having an event, whether you're having promotions, whether you're having just general updates. They even have right now COVID-19 specific updates that you can put up there. So there are different ways, but what people don't realize is that when they're posting content, when you're putting it in Facebook, Facebook walls it off. It's not indexable. But you have 1,500 characters that you can work with every time that you put a post to go live on your Google My Business page. And think about that. That's a significant amount of text. Not, it's not, a blog post, but it's enough for you to get across your point and to optimize using the keywords that you want people to find you for. So think about all the different models, the service that you offer, any special kinds of service that you might offer, and that'll probably be very important in a post-COVID.
So let's just say, for instance, some dealers actually do refinancing, and some dealers actually like to think to offer aftermarket products, believe it or not. There are some dealers out there that really see the benefit in putting that whole program together, that people will buy these additional products after they leave the dealership. I mean, and so I can see whether, especially again, for our dealers who want to create a more positive profit center for themselves, F&I profit center too, that would mean that at least customers would have the benefit of knowing that these services, these products, refinancing, that sort of thing is available through this. Am I getting that right?
You could put whatever it is that makes your dealership stand out into your Google listing. There are so many different tips and tricks to get those keywords in there. And what you got to remember is that when you're putting that content up there, you're feeding it directly into Google's mouth. If you're putting the same content on your website, you're waiting for Google to come to your website, read your website, decide how important that information is, see how much traffic and relevance your website has, and then rank you. And it takes a lot of time and effort to get on.
It does. I can tell you how. Oh my gosh, it's forever.
So if you're doing it this way, you're basically putting it right into Google's mouth, and you're forcing them to associate the content to your location. Bingo.
Who doesn't? Who wouldn't want to do that? I mean, maybe like me, I didn't know any better. So this is why, again, I'm like, Mark, you got to come on. You got to come on the F&I today here with me on the edge. We have a couple comments. Scott Allen says, yes, you should always ask for the Google review. You should have earned it by then and do so at the end. Yay. Absolutely. And then we have Richie Bello. We have a software that optimizes image and content and increases your citation flow. And we would love to talk to you off live. There you go, Mark. Maybe you and Richie can get together and make things happen. I love it when things come together. This guy, Richie Bello, he's freaking amazing. I love him to death. He is such a great person. And so, yeah, that'd be awesome for you guys to go ahead and get together. Sounds awesome, Richie Bello. Awesome. What's up, buddy? And then we've got Fredrick, Richie Bello. Hey. See, everybody loves Richie. And then there's Jason. Jason, so glad you could stop in and say hello. Boy, do I miss you. Now, let me tell you something. We are thinking and planning on our next virtual F&I roundtable. Jason, what do you think about that? And so I'll talk about that later, but yeah, I think so. I think that's coming up, and we're going to have some fun with that. And that's where we can get all these ideas out on the table. That's where it really makes it kind of cool. So hopefully Mark will be back and talking more about what's up in in what do you want to call it? Google search engines and reviews. And there's Richie. Do you use big data?
I help some clients with PPC campaigns, and I have an expert in the field who manages national campaigns for clients here in Canada, manage that process for us. And we do it. It's not our main area of focus, but we certainly handle it, and with quite a bit of capability as well.
There we go. And then I love Richie Bello. See, we got some love here. Okay. And okay. It's gone. Okay. Next sale at, all right, can help make sure you get those reviews. That's true. That's right. I don't know if you know Jason or not, but definitely worthwhile connection there as well. And you guys are interrupting my Survivor final, but it's Jonathan. Thank you again for being here. What do you have to say to Jonathan?
I say Survivor hasn't been the same since Boston Rob was voted out, Jonathan.
So there. I'm so glad, Jonathan, you stopped in to say hello. And then love you more, Jason. And then we have Ashley loves you, Rebecca. I love Ashley. He's got this assistant, Ashley. I'm telling you right now. She is amazing, awesome, wonderful, beautiful person. Great people. Nothing but love for everyone, not here, especially here. So, okay, so thinking through this COVID, post-COVID-19 stuff that I know more and more dealers are kind of getting tired of hearing about. It's like, okay, enough already. It's over. We're getting back to work, forget about it. Come on now. I don't even want to hear it anymore. And, so now we're even talking about not wearing masks, not wearing masks. It's like, come on now. It's all over and we're ready to get back to work. So I hear what people are saying as far as that goes, but how comfortable, I'm just kind of curious, in Canada, are you guys kind of ready to get back to work like we are here in the States? I mean, are they like gearing up, opening up their dealerships? I mean, what's happening with that whole thing, if you don't mind me asking?
We're not as aggressively opening up as we see our neighbors to the south. Here in Montreal, where I'm located, we're really the epicenter of the outbreak here in Canada, unfortunately. So we're being super careful. Yeah. Our provincial leadership wants to open things up and was hoping to do so this week, but keeps pushing it back. I know other provinces aren't even being as aggressive as Quebec is being. So it's not, we're not rushing it. And the latest polls show that people are more interested in just protecting their health for the moment than we are in reopening the economy. I think there's got to be some kind of balance that's struck at some point. But it's really hard. It's really hard to know. Retailers that are not a part of a mall here in Quebec were supposed to open, I think, next week. Was supposed to be opening day, but it's been pushed back once. It'll likely be pushed back again. The numbers for Montreal specifically are not looking very good. I actually spoke to a dealer that I've been actually negotiating with prior to COVID a couple of weeks ago. Their whole sales department is closed and they're just waiting for the word to reopen. So it's really a wait and see approach here.
So how do you see, and I know I don't want to overcomplicate things because there's only so much here. Oh gosh, Jonathan, he's on, he's from Canada. I can't remember what part. Hey, I think he's Toronto, right, Jonathan? Is it right? Win with Becky, that's it. Jonathan is amazing. He's an amazing sales associate, professional, top notch. It doesn't get him, I'm telling you, this guy's amazing. He is really cool. But I'm asking some of this because, I'm wondering how it affects, and I know I told you, that's where I was going. I'm going to be light on this. I'm not going to be heavy on you because you're not an F&I person. So, but you do know Jonathan. And I know Jonathan, and he knows his stuff. But how do you guys really see this F&I online coming together? Do you think that more and more dealers will support it, or do you think they'll back off from it?
From the online space specifically, I think you're going to listen. I think you're going to have no choice but to, be more involved in your online presence. I think that it's not the dealers who are going to dictate that. I think that's going to be the customers, and if they're flowing into your dealership like they were prior to mid-March, then good for you. I think, there are obvious risks to that as well. And I think dealers are going to have to really communicate to their clients how they're handling things on site. And if they have a chance to make a sale and their client doesn't want to come into the dealership, they're going to really have to figure out how to accommodate that person, and that will likely be using an online starting point, whether it's this is something that's not going to be a surprise to anybody, but enabling chat through your website, making sure that your website has contact forms, present throughout, making sure that your phone number is front and center on every single page that you possibly can, and making sure that that infrastructure is driven to get the lead, whether that person walks in the door or not. And I think that's true for any business, to be honest with you. I don't think this is dealership specific advice I'm saying here. I think this is true for anybody who wants to adapt to the new realities.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this chat, since you're the one who brought it up. But chat, I mean, I cringe at the thought, and I do. I cringe at chat, and I cringe because I just always see these walls coming up every single time. There's no, hi, call me, do this, do that. And I'm like, X out, X out. It's like, you're annoying me.
Yep.
And I don't think that and that can be not just dealers. I mean, you can talk the dentist office, etc. But everywhere, right? And it's like, you're annoying the crap out of me. I think I got to go. And so how do you do that better?
Listen, I think that people have BS detectors, right? And I see Laura's asking the question, what do you think of automatic bots? And I think that's the difference. I think a person knows when they're talking to a person versus talking to a robot who is triaging them to get a call from an internal source. So I think it's very important, especially for the team that's small and family run, and not swallowed by necessarily a big conglomerate dealership group. Put that personal touch into it and make sure that people know that they're being treated one-on-one by somebody. And I have clients who have these chat programs enabled on their website, and I see them on their telephones, because every time a chat comes in, they get an alert and they're interacting with that person live on their website as the questions are coming in. And that person on the other end knows they're talking to the owner, the general manager, the F&I person, whoever it might be.
See, the problem we have here, or I don't know, again, I can't speak for you so much, but the problem that I'm seeing and hearing so much of is when we ask a specific question, we're not answering that specific question. And maybe the customer does have a question as it pertains to financing. And we have been trained all over the years, whatever you do, don't answer customer specific questions when it gets to F&I. We'll wait until that customer gets into the dealership and gets into the F&I office, and then we'll go ahead and answer any of those questions. And so it's really annoying, because I've done some mystery shopping, and I have found that I ask some of the simplest questions. So for example, what is your special interest rate going on a Honda? And when you can't get a straight answer, that tells me something about this dealer. I'm like, well, why don't you even know your special financing rate, for crying out loud? Why do I have to wait to come into a dealership to talk about a special interest rate? It's there for everyone to know. I mean, the OEM, the manufacturers, they market it all the time. And now we're talking and saying to our customers, oh, by the way, you have to wait until you get into the F&I office to talk those terms. So here's the thing, I've got to go ahead. And Jonathan says, we'll be seeing starts and stops according to multiple waves of this pandemic. That's out of anyone's control. Now, on the business side of things, it'll be an absolute necessity to maintaining consistency for personnel, especially when it comes to a profit center like F&I. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think to build on what Jonathan's saying, and to build where you left off, Becky, I think the feeling that you're going to get when you walk into a dealership, when you walk into a dealership, like any store, if the tone of that dealership matches you, and if you're going to feel comfortable from the minute somebody approaches you and wants to sell to you, and That's the same feeling you have to cultivate in your online space. And, going back to chat or going back to just readiness of information, being able to access the person you need when you need that person. All of that is a feeling that you're putting out. It's your tone, it's your brand. And, there are many dealerships over the years that I've been into to strike a deal, and I'll drive out of my way if I don't feel like I'm a match for that group of people in that particular dealership. And it'll be the same thing online, and only online it's a lot easier to make that change.
Yeah, I to me, it is always felt, and Jonathan and I have had these conversations, and boy, did me tell you, we get into hour-long conversations. And so everybody's like wondering, what do you do, in your office? Well, I'm on the phone. Jonathan, no. But over the past couple, at least year anyway, we were talking about the importance of really managing that and doing a better job and engaging customers earlier on. And I will say this because, again, it is so important to know that customer earlier on, especially customers who might have some slow pay derogatory credit. And I talk about this time and time again until I'm blue in the face. And the reason for that is because if we give the customer the ability to shop, to determine their financing options in advance based off what they actually qualify for, it gets a bit easier, right? Instead of this, the old way of doing things, or still some of the ways that we still do things. Get the customer in the dealership, let's put them on a car, any car will do, we'll figure it all out later, don't even worry about any of this stuff. And you know what? I don't think many customers really want to spend all day in a dealership buying a car anymore. No. It's like, Carvana, let's talk about Carvana for a minute that people don't want to talk about. No one wants to talk about Carvana. They think that Carvana is a colossal loser. They're losing millions of dollars. And meanwhile, what happened with this whole thing? Their shares just went sky high. And then they are also, which I don't know if you know this or not, Mark, but they're also the number 8 pre-owned retailer, e-tailer, if you will, in the United States. And they have sold more cars in 2019 than, listen to this, AutoNation, Penske, and I believe Lithium Motors combined. So what's that tell you? I mean, they can't be all that wrong. And that's maybe how customers want to buy a car, want to at least have a better understanding of what I can qualify for. I don't want to be dragged through the mud.
No, 100%. And I think what that's going to mean to dealers is that they're going to have to take their product and bring it to you. I've seen some dealers out here who are doing that very successfully, working, extending their market reach by community, by having the sales guy get into the car, drive it to the client's house, 30 kilometers, whatever that is in miles, away from their dealership, so that a family can test drive a car, get behind the wheel, feel the car, and then negotiate at their kitchen table and sign contracts, and then have the delivery at the house as well. And that's, I think, in any business you're in, you need to listen to the pull of the customer. If you're going to be rigid in your thinking and not want to bend or be flexible or, meet the client on their terms, you're gonna lose out over the long run. I
think sometimes we want to protect the golden goose, right? It's 100%. It's a huge profit center, but if you don't give them some more information, I think that they'll pull away and get it from somebody who will. And I'm not here to go ahead and put any scare tactics. I really am not. I'm really trying to talk through this because I'm hearing so much going on. It's like, well, why would we want to do this? Business as usual. I mean, I got to tell you, 2 weeks ago, it's like the shit hit the fan. It's like, what are we going to do? Now it's like things are calming down a little bit. Okay, we're opening up. Okay, now we can get back to business as usual. But is that really a smart thing to do? And shouldn't we at least offer customer traditional, non-traditional ways of buying a car instead of sitting back and waiting for things to, I don't know what this
Well,
falls
listen,
in.
I think there are going to be a lot of people, and I'm no expert on this, but I would think there's going to be a lot of people who are still going to want to go and sit face to face with somebody and negotiate and have that feeling of normalcy for themselves, to be able to have that traditional negotiation. But there is going to be a whole segment of people who are not going to want that and not even going to want to sit that close to anybody, let alone a guy in a car dealership who's, breathing recycled air all day.
I know, right? Hold on for a second. We've got some comments here. How about when customers submit for information instead of traditional chat, give customers optional to do live video chats instead? They can see face to face instantly. I don't know. Here's what I think. I think sometimes, I know Toyota Scion used to have a program, and I forget the name of it, but you could actually see where the customer was during the entire digital journey, if you want to call it that. When they were shopping, where they were, you could interact with the customer, and they gave you a couple options to be able to do that through chat, through video, and also I think texting was also available. I think sometimes video can be a little intimidating, and we've got to be careful with that tool. It's a great tool, but it's got to be used at the right time. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not the marketing expert guru like you are, but I'm just thinking sometimes video can be a little bit intimidating at the wrong time, or I think texting is really ideal. And I think more and more customers appreciate the texting capability and and definitely will respond to that. And so what are your thoughts there, Mark?
Like I said, I really don't think it's the dealer's choice. I think it's the customer's choice, but the dealer has to be able to handle the choice being made by the person, whether that means a video chat, a text message, visit my home, whatever it might be. The dealer needs to adapt to that. It might take time, but they need to, think of their emerging infrastructure in that way, so that the person who's actually feeding them and bringing them business is the most comfortable person in the transaction. So, I do agree that it might be a little bit unsettling to, be, going along the digital journey and all of a sudden, boom, somebody's face is there on your screen. Yeah, I wouldn't want that too much, but I would like the option to have the haggling go on, just like you and I are talking right now.
Absolutely right. We got some more. We got a lot of comments going on. As a veteran of the retail car business and F&I development companies, I see this pandemic will be forcing organizations who resisted doing business via
the web. Yeah.
The web. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, it's going to force people to be more, web savvy for sure.
Yeah, so I think so. However, some of these guys definitely don't see the tools, the technology. They're still working around that, through that. Some really, and again, the camera for many is very uncomfortable, and that's the F&I person too. Now, if they want similar or increased production, they'll need to master the internet market for survival. And like what you're talking about, right? I mean, like what you told me and you walked me through. How important is that? And like in my own backyard, I didn't know that you had to feed Google that. If I could feed Google rather than feeding, I just took it for granted that I thought that I knew what I was doing. Obviously.
Listen, Becky, think about your own shopping behavior, okay? I know how I shop. I could be standing in a store and I can be looking at a toaster oven, and I'll pull out my phone and I'll look for reviews of that toaster oven. And if the reviews are bad, I'll move to the next one. Or even worse for the retailer, if Amazon says, oh, you were looking for a toaster oven in that price range, here's another one, and those ratings are 4.8 out of 5, I might be standing in a retail store with intent to buy the toaster oven and order it on Amazon from the retail location. I mean, think about that and the impact of that. This is, the same is true for people looking for validation for where they're going to buy their car. So again, it comes down to being where the person is looking for the recommendation that they're looking for. Should I deal with that business to begin with? Well, let me check their reviews. Where do you go? You go to Google. And if the business has 10 reviews versus and a 4.0 rating versus a business that has 700 reviews and a 4.2 rating, well, I might trust the guy who has 700 reviews a little bit more. So, I'm using that as one example of many different ways that people shop, but shopping starts with an online search, and your content play is important. The last few times I've been in the market for a car, I can tell you that I have watched countless amounts of videos, so that when I go into the dealership, I know roughly where my starting price is going to be for the package that I want to buy. And then the fun starts. I get to negotiate based on that. And,
I think that's where you get a little fearful. so we got Becky, you rock. Thank you, Laura. The old ways of doing business don't work in any industry. Good
Correct.
for you for waking up your industry and helping them thrive. This is time for innovation. Definitely. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. And I think, we talked in Jonathan as well, talk about the little steps that we take, actually take, that make a difference. And I talk about this in my training all the time. And I'm not asking you to go ahead and reinvent the world. I really am not. I'm just asking you to work smart. And by doing that, take these little steps that's going to make a big difference in your overall performance. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you see some of these steps that you're talking about today? Doesn't it make sense, right? If I don't necessarily, why can't I cultivate my own backyard? Why don't I ever, I don't know. I don't know. I always used to say, I don't get as much business in my own backyard. I'm everywhere else, and I am, except my own backyard. And I'm thinking, Mark, you're absolutely right. What am I doing here? What am I doing? So just the little steps, those can make a big difference. And I know, I'm telling you, Mark, you're going to help me, and we're going to get this. You're going to get this started. And then Laura, she's phenomenal. She has here's an entrepreneur, business person who has owned her business, right, for many, many years. And she's become a doctor and all sorts of stuff, but amazing. And has worked with cancer patients. I mean, this woman is absolutely phenomenal. And Lou mentions Carvana has definitely made the industry understand that there is need for our process to be upgraded. Hello, Lou. Yay. I just think if there's a certain model, right, that people are seeing some success with, why wouldn't you at least go, let's take a look at this. Let's strategize this. Let's do a huddle. Let's think about this. We don't have to change everything that we've been doing that made us successful. But businesses we're supposed to be looking at the future, the next 5 years. If you're not looking into the future for the next 5 years, you're going to be lost. Isn't there something to be said about that? Or is it just me?
We've seen it for different industries over time for the last 20 years as the internet has changed things up. Go back to Napster, go back to what Facebook has done to the publishing industry, go back to all of these examples that have, had a deep impact and made, the legacy industries really have to think about their delivery model. It's no different here in the car world. The automotive space is not just thinking about how to sell cars to people who want to buy cars. They have to think about, people who might never buy a car and why, and really double down on, reaching the people who actually have a need and want to buy a car. When I was working on the Ford account between 2012 for 5 years, one of the biggest question is, why aren't millennials buying cars, right? Mm-hmm. They can't figure that stuff out, or they weren't back then, at least. The dynamic of the industry is changing every day. The response to post COVID-19 environment is just another thing that needs to be considered in terms of, getting out there and reaching the right people on their terms. It's always about their terms.
I have said this, and I've said it a million times, and everyone knows me that ever has watched my episodes on F&I Today. I'm the host on the F&I Today, and I have talked about engaging customer way, meeting the customer out at a salesperson's desk. In fact, I've even said there are no more walls. Wherever the customer wants to meet, that's where we're going to meet, right? That's where we're going to meet up. And why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we do it that way? It just makes more sense. So, Jonathan, okay, we got a big one here. Carvana has created a seamless approach with bells and whistles included to attract the digital crowd who understood the touchless approach. Now that crowd has extended into multiple demographics and age ranges. People will be traumatized to walk into anything, and they're going to want as streamlined approach as possible. If my mom can use online banking, then a dealership can certainly offer a fully touchless F&I approach. What do you say about that? Should dealers consider F&I online?
Listen, I know Jonathan, and I know our Canadian mentality, particularly here in Montreal, in the epicenter of this outbreak. And I totally agree with him. But we see things opening up in the States. It's a very different reality, in the U.S. than it is here in Canada in terms of how leadership is handling the reopening of the economy. And I agree, and I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. I think it's all going to be consumer led. The consumer will pull the industry in the way that they want to be treated. And if you own a dealership and you can't react fast enough, then you're going to suffer the consequences, unfortunately. And if I can go back even earlier when we talked about like these little things that you can do to make a difference and own your backyard, every single person who is listening to us right now can go and claim your Google My Business listing for free right now. Start the process, get that done, and then in the back end, you can see all the tips and tricks that you could use to stand out in your neighborhood. And some of those will be, Google allows you to associate attributes. Do you do curbside deliveries? Will you visit the home? What kinds of, do you have, little things, even like, handicap access and your hours and all those details. And the more you can put in there, the more chance you have of owning your backyard. So I actually challenge you all to go and do these little free things, because it doesn't cost any money to own your Google My Business listing, and it doesn't cost any money to start a whisper campaign to get people to leave you positive reviews. It really doesn't.
Well, I'm hoping guys and gals here are paying attention and that they're running and doing what they can to say, hey, by the way, have we claimed our business? Google channel yet? Have we done that? No. What do you mean we haven't done that? What are we doing? What are we talking about?
From my experience, there are two kinds of dealers. There are the very sophisticated, marketing automated, ready, dealer who's got their online infrastructure well into place, and then there are smaller dealers who are, who have thrived on word of mouth through their clients, and for either because of sales or service. And all we're encouraging you to do is to bring more power to that word of mouth by putting it online. That's all.
Here's Mr. El Patron, who just came in, and I got to tell you, talk about innovative. Here's a guy that does whatever it takes. He delivers vehicles to people's homes. He doesn't care wherever that they are. I mean, this man is a fighter of how do we get outside the box. He's in New York, and obviously, or New Jersey, New York, but it is to a very troubled state. But I'll tell you right now, he's doing everything he can to knock it out. And my understanding, if I'm not mistaken, 8 cars delivered today. He is all about putting his F&I online, doing whatever it takes to
Bravo.
sell cars. Oh, this guy really works his butt off. I mean, this guy, I said, so I told him that today, and I meant everything. It's amazing how tough he just doesn't take no for an answer. And he hasn't had it really easy at all. But everybody's watching, everybody's paying attention, Mr. El Patron. I know I am, and I tell you, you're doing a hell of a job, and you keep it up, and you're making everybody else do what they need to do, and it's awesome. So I see the positives of no contact online purchase, off-site delivering to be plucked clean in the dealer's favor, and release the others as that was during the pandemic, and only keeping what works best as we get back to normal and start moving forward. What do you think about that?
I think it's absolutely right. I think it reinforces everything we've been talking about for the last, hour or so. It's evolve or suffer the consequences.
And then Mr. El Patron says we can all do more. We can all do more. I mean, he's pushing it, sweating it, pushing it. And, I know he was devastated. I remember the day he had to shut that door down. I saw the video and I was like, I felt so bad. Not to think that I didn't feel bad for myself and my business is shutting down, but, I just could feel the pain. He in his voice and tears in his eyes, that he had to shut down, and his people, right? Obviously couldn't work, and I know he took that really hard. And I got to tell you, he didn't take no for an answer, and he did whatever that he could. And so again, what a cool guy. And then we have, look at Ford. Laura says, look at how vehicles are transforming. Look at Uber making buyers rethink cars. Look at how fast stores are doing curbside overnight. Mr. 1020 is awesome. Thank you both. You're welcome, Miss Laura. So things are changing with Uber drivers. I don't know. What do you think about that whole thing? Do you think people are going to go ahead and, I don't know, you think they're going to stick it out with Uber drivers, or you think they're going to get in that car? I mean, I don't know. Is it me?
I think like you. I wouldn't hop in an Uber today.
I'm sorry, Laura. I love you.
I wouldn't take public transport.
I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm having a hard time thinking airplane. Today, and I was like floored. Here I'm hearing that we're doing all these best practices, and airlines are doing whatever that they can to make sure, not today in general. Jesus, not
I agree.
I gotcha. Don't worry about it. Just like, oh shoot, I don't know. I might even have to have some of those services to get over some of my phobia, Laura. But the thing is that even the airlines today, and be it for me, I am going to say something about these airlines. What the hell are they doing? So United Airlines, from what I understand, I saw it on TV, doesn't make it true, right? Because we cannot believe it's actually being televised. It's a shame. But supposedly there was a video that was taken, and the gentleman mentioned that they promised that they would not be selling the middle seats.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see it?
Yeah, but you make a great point. The picture that we saw that contradicts that policy. Who knows when that picture was taken? Although the picture I saw had people wearing masks.
Right. They were
wearing masks.
So then I'm hearing, okay, and I know I'm going down a rabbit's hole here, so I'll get out real quick. But then the other airline said, oh, well, you have to wear your mask until you get on the flight. Once you're on the flight, you can take your mask off. I don't know. So who knows where this whole thing is going? So I don't know. So we just have to do the right thing. We have to do the right thing. And as I believe Scott mentioned, at the end of the day, hopefully we have dealers and we have F&I people that are trying on new ways of doing and conducting business. And so in the traditional sense, we've always had offsite deliveries. That's not like uncommon or anything, right? It's not like unheard of, especially in the Highline. I mean, there are doctors, lawyers. I mean, they don't have time all day to spend in a dealership. And, you better curbside it, or you better deliver my car. I mean, how often does that happen? Porsches, are you kidding me? It's often. So why aren't we doing a better job with that? Why aren't we meeting our customers off-site? Why aren't we doing presentations online? Why aren't we doing our sharing our desktop to doing these presentations? Why are we convincing ourselves that nobody wants to buy online? And then I'll say this, I was talking to, and I believe actually another gentleman in Canada, who was introduced by me with Jonathan, who will be coming on, JC, and he will talk to you guys about how he has businesses that he currently works with, dealerships, that they do all online. And they actually do better than the face-to-face deliveries. So he's actually seeing the opposite. He is seeing a higher performance done online versus face-to-face. So I can't wait for that conversation, because he's coming on the F&I on the I keep saying the F&I Today. I get so used to saying the F&I Today show, but F&I on the Edge. And we're going to be talking about that, because that blows me away. And I bet it might blow some of you guys away as well. So always do the right thing, be transparent, have some fun here. And and Al Patron says, I never made so much money per car deal than now. So I'm going to say something about that, Mr. Patron. I'm glad you brought that up, because there's more and more dealers who might have 50% of volume drop. 40, okay, maybe 60. They're 60%, right, selling as much, or 40% drop. And they're making more gross now than they've ever done before. Why do you suppose that is?
If you're asking me, I have no idea. I'd like to hear his answer.
Well, Al Patron, come on now and answer this if you like, and you can hop on too if you want to hop on.
I'll tell you why. I'm interested in his answer from his perspective, because I'm negotiating to buy a car. So I'm very curious to know what my power my purchasing power is when I walk in and finalize that deal.
Well, I think I will say from my perspective is that volume has always diminished skill set, because we're really not having to pay attention to it. It's always the next deal, always the next customer that comes in. And so I would think that they're managing each transaction and taking time with each customer, right?
Well, let me ask you a question, because I've noticed this in the little interactions that I've had with different buying situations, whether it's ordering a pizza to my house, or dealing with a delivery guy, or actually going to a store. I'd be willing, to a certain degree, to pay a little bit more to support the local business versus the bigger business. So, for example, when I was, here in Canada, we have to change our tires. We have summer tires, we have winter tires. When I was calling the dealer to make that appointment, they couldn't give me an appointment for a while. So I called the local guy. He was a few bucks more, but I got serviced faster. I felt personally like I was supporting a local business, which is important for me, and for my mantra of what I do. So I wonder if there's a little bit of that also from the buyer's perspective. Is I'll give a little bit more because I want to support this business. Now, how much is that offset by I've been furloughed, or I've lost my job and I'm not pulling in the same amount of income as I was prior? So I don't know what the answer is. That in some ways makes sense to me, what El Patron is saying, and in some ways as a consumer it doesn't.
I think here, Ken, this is where it gets tricky. If a customer sees that you're willing to give up the control, that you're willing to be upfront, this is what it is. I'm confident with this. I'm good with this. There's no tricks. There's no this. There's no that. There's no BS. It is what it is. This is who we are. This is what we're authentic, I guess, right? Genuine in our approach, genuine and authentic. And this is where, again, back, when we were talking years back with menu selling, and here's Adam Aarons. Adam Aarons is only best salespeople are working customers, not shopping 6 dealers. There you go. There's the ambassador sales approach. Mr. Adam Aarons, he owns several dealerships in New England, and he is one of my best buddies. Mr. Adam Aarons, he's my mentor. I think the world of Mr. Adam. He knows it too. Love him to death. And, he's the one who kicked me out, and I had to go present menus in these AutoNation stores in the middle of a showroom at a kiosk, and I'm thinking, is this going to work? Are you out of your freaking mind? Well, if you want to work here, this is what you're going to do. Anyway, so, we learned a lot about transparency and the idea of people will buy if they really know that you're credible and that you're upfront, right? And man, I just think that if we could just do that and be more consistent with it, again, the more ambassador approach, the better. If you don't give them what they want, somebody else will. Absolutely, all day long, right? Like you were talking about. Again, if in fact I'm trying to hold back information, if I don't want to share this information, if it's always about get the appointment, get the customer in the dealership, and don't worry about anything else, I think this is kind of where we get in trouble. This is it. So it's like, okay, well, you don't have to give me the information. I'll go and find it from somebody else who will. And you've got to figure out, how does that whole thing work? How can I meet the customer's expectations and, create that engagement where, what, I like you, and we're buying a car today. Let me ask you,
Becky, let me for a second tie that back into, the whole idea of trust and transparency and how that plays out in reviews, right? It's very easy to look at those reviews, whether they're happening on Yelp or on Google or on Facebook, wherever they might be, and know that the business owner actually cares about what people are saying, whether it's positive or negative. The absentee business owner will pay the price because he's not going to be seen as transparent if he's not responding to that negative review or thanking people for that positive review. So it also plays out in the online space.
So Adam says it's more about relationships than ever before. And then let me ask you a question. Alfretrone says, do you negotiate with Amazon? Not me.
It's a great question.
I don't think so. But I love to buy from them because they make my life easy. Just show up, would you? Do you know you can get the same product much cheaper, but people love having boxes drop off at home, and for that, they're willing to pay a lot more. Hey, you know what? The convenience factor, there's a lot to be said about the convenience factor. If you're upfront, if you're transparent, if you're willing to make it a lot easier for me to buy, yeah, I do see the benefit in that whole thing. Tools for all becoming available from the customer to the dealer. The dealer must master them in order to be prepared for our buyers. One thing I do want to mention on that, Lou, and again, that's a big issue right here. This one right here, what Lou was talking about, and not knowing the technology. You, Mark, not realizing the technology and what it does. Do you know how many dealers might have had digital retailing on their websites, and none of the managers really even knew what it did or how it could help? I mean, we buy this stuff, but we don't use it.
Yeah, and it puts you at a disadvantage because the guy coming into the dealership is using it. And like Lou is saying, you have to be prepared for the people. And like I was saying earlier, I know what I want when I walk into that dealership. And I want to be able to have an intelligent conversation. And I want to know that that person I'm talking to knows more about the process and the product than I do.
Amen. You know what? Freaking men. Let me tell you something. Don't you hit a chord there again? I mean, he can't stop it. But it's true. It's like we have some industry folks out here, experts, I guess. I don't know, and maybe they don't think so much like this anymore. I hope not. But this is, I had Adam Aarons on the F&I today on CBT Automotive Network, and we talked about the benefit of training up your staff and having that ambassador sales approach. And that means that we have to do a better job training up our sales staff and keeping salespeople in the dark because we're afraid that they'll give up the farm. I don't think is a good approach anymore, right? Or I don't know if it was even a best approach before. And it's like we don't want to train our sales staff on these products because they might give away the farm, the price, the this, and they'll likely make it so that the customer may not buy from us. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you train up your staff? Why wouldn't you be, again, if a customer has a question as it pertains to any of these products, wouldn't you want them to be able to answer that question? And again, if they're not able to answer the question, like you said, they're going to lose credibility. Why in the world would I buy this product if it doesn't make any sense to you? You don't even know what it is.
100%. I want to know down to the mud flap, what it's going to be. And if the guy doesn't know, then why is he there?
I'm going to go get my manager. I'll be right back. How's that make you feel?
It makes me feel like this guy's unprepared. That whole process, you want to talk about, making somebody feel comfortable, right? When you go in and you want to have your car evaluated, why does that, maybe I'm naive, but from a consumer perspective, why does that have to take so long? Why do you have to feel like they've trapped you in an office waiting for an answer of how much the value of your car is? And then when you get into the F&I office, why do you have to feel like it's upsell after upsell after upsell on, lease protection packages and this and that and da-da-da-da. And half the time, the first price they're giving you is not the price that really can be. It's all a game. Well, it's not a game that everybody wants to play all the time. So just come out with it. Be honest about it. Let's have it.
Price out, and there you have it. I was always good with that. And Jonathan, how would you manage to improve what a dealer can do in terms of online reputation? That's a great question.
Well, that's the big crux of what we've been talking about for a while now, which is, make sure that you're watching you're monitoring what people are saying about you online. The whole idea of listening to the voice of the consumer when it comes to the online space is key. So you can think about it as, okay, on the front line, get out there, respond to it. Like we said, thank people, correct the mistakes you've made because those perceptions about you are very real, but also use the criticism and the feedback to amend and evolve your processes internally. This is like focus group information that you don't have to pay for. Take advantage of it. Listen to what people are saying and implement that feedback.
Amen. Let me tell you. And then, so Mark, let's give it to them. All right, Mark, let's give it to him. Hey, Elvatron, that's it. I love this guy, Elvatron. He is amazing. You got to follow him on LinkedIn. You got to, and Facebook. He's a great guy. Adam Aarons, if you want to make it all about price, hide your price and let everyone in your store think price is the only objection. Here's a guy. Now, here's a deal. A guy dealer, but a very successful dealer at that, who puts his pricing up front. He posts his terms and his APR, the rate, on the floor. He doesn't hide from nobody. This is how we do business. This is who we are. This is what we are all about. And you know what? People, customers, His employees love him. I mean, it's just, I mean, you don't have to hide, you don't have to cheat, steal no, it's like completely upfront in his stores. And that's Subaru, Nissan, you name it. He does a fantastic job. He really does.
Well, I love this because for me, when I'm sitting in that negotiation, I don't want to feel like I'm being given a favor. Oh, I'm not making money on this car. Oh, my margin is this. Oh, that's not my problem. That's your problem. Keep that problem away from me. Let's have a negotiation in good faith. And if the numbers work, they work. But don't make me feel like you're doing me a favor. That I cannot stand.
Well, it's just, again, this is where this whole thing's shaken up, coming together, trying to figure out how do we engage, what are best practices to engage, chat, text, how are we marketing to our customers, how are we dealing with our own customers in our own backyard, which I think is phenomenal. Again, going back to the story, the diamonds, the acre of diamonds are in your own backyard, something like that. But anyway, it was a great story, and there was just so much opportunity to be had. So I can't thank you enough, Mark, for coming on the F&I on the Edge and really getting into some edgy conversation. I know it's a little uncomfortable for you because you're not an F&I, but
it's been a great fun time. I've loved this. This is great.
Yeah, so I really appreciated that, and I hope everyone else did too. And hopefully, yeah, you get some of these guys reaching out to you, and that would be a good thing. And I know
awesome.
we're going to put some stuff together. I know we are.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Becky. I really, really appreciate it. It's been great fun, and I know we'll talk again soon.
And Laura says, thank you so much, Laura. And I'm going to tell you guys, if in fact, here's the thing. And I got to put a plug in for Laura because she's amazing. She is freaking amazing. But anyone wants to go ahead and stop smoking. I don't think anyone here smokes anyway. But I don't know how many more people smoke anyway. But I'm just saying, if you're a smoker, or if you want to lose some weight, or you want to feel better about yourself, feeling good, doing some exercising, that sort of stuff, you got to hit Laura up. She is freaking amazing. And then, like I said, she works with a lot of patients, cancer patients. I mean, she's just amazing. So you might want to hit Miss Laura up too. Thank you again, Mark, and it was a pleasure. Jonathan, if you're still on, thank you again for your introduction to Mark. Let's bring JC on, and we'll talk about those stores that are doing this stuff online and making all the performance. And great talk, Lou. Thank you. Forgive the focus fly. Love it. And Miss Laura says, not taking individuals anymore. Oh, whoa, you're not? What happened to me? Come on, Laura. What do I know? I guess I'm a little behind the times because she's working for big companies now. I don't know. But anyway, she used to be fantastic, fabulous. I don't know what else to say. All right. Well, it's good seeing. Anyway, thank you again. I appreciate only me. Okay, well, I need all the help I can get. Where have you been all my life? Yeah, I mean, tell you. And yes, we live, kid. I love it. El Patron, thank you again. And for being here tonight. Adam Aarons, everyone, Jonathan, we really appreciate it. Scott, appreciate you being here. Fredrick, definitely appreciate you being here. Jonathan, great live, Becky. Mark's probably in his PJs already. Good way to wrap it up. All right. Well, we are wrapping it up, and Jonathan will talk soon, and definitely would want to bring that JC on and talk about how he does all his business. And Adam Aarons, you're amazing. All right, guys, we're out. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Have a good night. And
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.